Day 2 of the murder trial of Karmelo Anthony featured some emotional testimony from several people who were at the track meet the day of the deadly stabbing.
And some of those witnesses, students who just were feet away from Austin Metcalf when he died. Fox 4's Alex Boyer live tonight with an update on today's hearing. Alex.
Hey guys, and testimony wrapped up less than an hour ago. It was certainly a very difficult day of testimony inside of the courtroom. For the first time, we really got a look at that folding knife that was used to kill Austin Metcalf. The jury was also shown some graphic body camera video from a police officer's perspective. You can see CPR being performed on Metcalf. I can tell you that several people in the courtroom got emotional watching that, including Metcalf's mother, who is seated in front of me. Now, our sketch artist takes us back inside the Collin County courtroom where cameras are prohibited. Anthony is dressed in a blue suit today. This morning, the jury heard from Frisco ISD School Resource Officer Eduardo Cortez. He took Anthony into custody at the stadium after that deadly encounter. Anthony was identified by witnesses who were following him and identified him wearing that Essentials Fear of God gray sweatshirt and dark pants. The jury also watched Cortez's body camera video. And when Anthony's cuffed, Cortez radioed to dispatch that he had the alleged suspect in custody. You then hear Anthony tell Cortez, "I'm not alleged, I did it." Anthony appears to get emotional when he went on to say, "He put his hands on me. I told him not to." The jury was then shown the pictures of the knife used to stab Metcalf at that meet. It's a 3.5-inch folding knife, and it has blood on it. I can tell you that it was located 3 to 4 rows up from the crime scene in between some bleachers. Anthony's blue backpack was also found there. I talked to a court TV host, Cody Thomas, who observed today's testimony.
The video definitely brought about a visceral response from Metcalf's camp. His family, obviously, sitting 2 rows behind his father. We're seeing this body cam video of when Karmelo's arrested. We're seeing the first moments of that, and we're hearing Karmelo, sounding emotional, saying, I told him not to put his hands on me. I told him not to, and that's what the prosecution's harping on, saying that part is a lie.
So perhaps the most gut-wrenching moment in court today was when the jury saw another police officer's body camera video that I mentioned captured first responders doing CPR on Metcalf at the bottom of the bleachers. That lead paramedic testified that Metcalf's pupils were fixed and dilated, and he didn't have a pulse. He was gray, and it was obvious in that body camera video to us as well. That's when several members of the Metcalf family broke down in the courtroom. Here again is Cody Thomas.
You see that, I can only imagine what the family's feeling when they're looking at their now deceased son laying here. And I'm looking towards Karmelo Anthony's side of the courtroom, and, they're just taking it all in. It's a different kind of emotional reaction. It might not be as audible and visible because it's none of their people have died. But, of course, Karmelo's sitting there facing, his liberty's at stake. He could go to jail for the rest of his life.
And so while I was still inside of the courtroom, the jury also heard testimony from 2 teens who were under the tent that fateful day and witnessed the encounter. Both said that Metcalf asked Anthony repeatedly to leave the tent over the course of a few minutes and that Anthony refused. One teen said that he saw Metcalf use both of his hands to push Anthony on his shoulders. At that point, Anthony had his hand in his backpack, which was on his lap. He said that Anthony swayed back, and when he came back forward, that is when Anthony stabbed Metcalf. Now, the teens testified that they did not see him actually get stabbed, but noticed blood coming from his shirt, and that's how they were aware of the stabbing. Now, I can tell you again, in one of the officer's body camera videos, you can see Metcalf's twin brother, inconsolable, near the crime scene, and he was yelling really at the top of his lungs, crying, saying, "That was my best friend, that was my brother." Very difficult to hear. Now, I want to bring in my colleague, Amelia Jones, who sat in on this afternoon's testimony once I left the courtroom. And Amelia, I know at that point when I had left, those 2 teens had testified. I understand that this afternoon, other teens that were under the tent also testified.
Yes, all testimony today was from students who were firsthand witnesses to what happened under the tent. There were students either at Memorial High School or one was from Liberty High School. I want to read from my notes here. I want to start with what was consistent with the witnesses. They all testified that they believe the stabbing was not in self-defense. They believe Austin Metcalf was not looking for a fight, and they believe Karmelo Anthony was the aggressor. Now, That's what they testified to when the prosecution specifically asked them those questions. But there was some inconsistencies in their testimony today. I wrote down witnesses described the physical interaction between Metcalf and Anthony differently. I wrote down a lot of words in my notes I have here. Witnesses used words such as nudge, push, touch, grab, and shove, all describing varying intensities of a physical interaction, right? They also, yes, differed on how hard Metcalf physically touched Anthony during that altercation. I wrote down that I think it'll be interesting to see how the jury really processes that and how they understand and believe the interaction went down from the testimony that was presented. Now, of course, we have to hear the defense's witnesses, right, and what those witnesses have to say. So on the defense's side, during cross-examination, I took note that Anthony's defense team really highlighted the difference in size between Metcalf and Anthony. We know Metcalf was a football player, and one witness testified that Metcalf probably had about 50 to 60 pounds on Anthony. So the defense really honed in on the comparison of their size, specifically how Anthony was a smaller build and smaller in stature when this all happened. And so I think that line of questioning, was consistent in the teen witnesses that took the stand. I think that gives us some insight into the case that the defense is building.
Sure, trying to build that case for self-defense.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you so much, Amelia Jones, for your perspective there and insight. Of course, Amelia, again, taking over this story nightside. She's going to have a wrap on the latest testimony, more on what you just heard tonight on Fox 4 News later this evening, beginning at 9 and 10 p.m. The judge holding court tomorrow, so I will be here for testimony and bring you the latest then. Back to you.
All right, some of the things Amelia was talking about, it sounds like jury instructions will be very important as well, right, Alex? If a push or a shove rises to deadly force in response to that, and there's just so many things we're left to learn as well. All right, Alex Boyer in McKinney tonight, thank you. Our coverage continues tonight in our late news block. Also, court will be in session tomorrow. Alex Boyer will be in the courtroom, again, following developments. You can follow along on fox4news.com and the free Fox Local app.